Hello everybody, this is Pastor Green. We're doing another Bible study, 2 Kings chapter 11. If you'd like me to speak at your church or if you have any questions, you can email me at godsohman@gmail.com, or you can just comment below. So there are many great men in the Bible. There are also very many wicked men in the Bible. There are many great women in the Bible. And there are also many wicked women in the Bible. God just tells us the truth about who people are and what they did. Doesn't mean if they're good or bad. It tells the truth about who these people were. 2 Kings 11 verse 1. And when Olatha, the mother of Hezekiah, saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the seed royal. You got to think, wait, hold on a second. God promised David 130 years earlier that he would have his descendants on the throne forever, and this person just took out all the seed. If you go to 2 Samuel 7, it says, And it came to pass, when the king sat in his house, and the Lord had given him rest around all of his enemies, that the king said unto Nathan the prophet, See now, I dwell in the house of cedar, but the ark of God dwelleth within curtains. Verse 5, Go and tell my servant David, Thus saith the Lord, Thou shalt build me a house for me to dwell in. Verse 12, And when thy days be fulfilled, and they shall sleep with thy fathers, I will set up thy seed after thee, which shall proceed out of thy bowels, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. Verse 16, And thy house and thy kingdom shall be established forever because of thee. Thy throne shall be established forever. According to all these words and according to all the visions, so did Nathan speak to David. So basically, God promised David that his son was always going to be on the throne. And if you look at this thing here, in Israel, Ahaz and Hezekiah was killed by God. Jezebel and Jehoram was killed by Jehu. Over here in Judah's side, Jehoram was killed by God. Ahaziah was killed by Jehu. And the other sons were killed by Athaliah. You look at the kings and prophets, you're going to see Jehu over here and Elisha. There's Joash. Further on, you're going to see David had a couple kids. He had Solomon and he had Nathan. There's Solomon. And we're talking about Joash right now. And through David, through Solomon, Joseph, who's the father of Jesus, his line goes through Solomon. And if you look at Nathan's line, that's where Mary gets her kingly throne. So Jesus is through Mary, he's going to be a king. But even his stepfather Joseph also has a kingly line. And throughout the Bible, you're going to see Dathan mentioned multiple times. 2 Kings 11 verse 2. And Jehoshabeah, the daughter of the king of Joram, sister of Ahaziah, took Joash the son of Ahaziah, and stole him among the king's sons which were slain, and hid him, even him and his nurse, in the bedchamber from Elisha, that he was not slain. So this person took Joash, who was the son, and he hid him away, so that way he wasn't killed. Now, it says here, now we see David's promised lamp almost extinguished, and yet wonderfully preserved. It was almost extinguished by the barbarous malice of Elisha, the queen's mother, who, when she heard that his son Ahaziah was slain by Jehu, arose and destroyed all the seed royal. All this she knew had to be akin to the crown. Her husband Jehoram had slain his brethren, the sons of Josaphat. The Arabs had slain all of Jeroboam's sons except Ahaziah in 2 Corinthians. Jehu has slain all of their sons in 2 Corinthians 22:8, and Ahaziah himself. Surely never was royal blood so profusely shed. Happy is the man who inferior birth, who lived below envy and not make emasculation, but also all that were built, all but a small matter. Habakkuk destroyed all that were left in the seed royal. It was strange that one of the tender sex could be so barbarous, one that had been herself a king's daughter, a king's wife, and a king's mother. She could be so barbarous to a royal family, in a family which she herself was grafted, but she did it. And from a spirit of ambition she thirsted after the rule, as though she could not get into it any other way. That none may reign with her, she slew even the infants and sucklings that might have reigned after her, for fear of her competitor. Or any must be reserved for successor, for the spirit of revenge and rage against God, the house of Ahab being utterly destroyed. And her son Ahijah among the rest, because he was akin to it, she resolved, as it were, with a way of reprisal, to destroy the house of David, and to cut off his line in defiance of God's promise, to perpetuate it. Foolish attempt and fruitless. Who can annul what God has proposed? This person worshipped Baal, and so she said, I need to get rid of this Israeli God. I need to get rid of this God, for David and his sons. And so she wanted to be in charge. She wanted to be, the person that was in charge. So she ended up taking out all of his line. If you look at 2 Samuel 7:16, it says, "Thy house and thy kingdom shall be established forever before thee. Thy throne shall be established forever." According to all these words and according to all the visions did Nathan speak to David. If God makes a promise, it's his problem to know how he keeps it. Acts 2 says, "And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved." All throughout the Bible it talks about shall be saved. A lot of times the people try to prevent you from being saved, but God said that if you just call upon him and believe in him, you're going to be saved. Romans 10 says, "For whosoever call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved." And this was one of the reasons I'm not a Calvinist, and it's a good book if you want to read that. But it talks about having eternal life. If you're saved, you get to have eternal life. 2 Kings 10:3 says, "And he was with her, hid in the house of the Lord 6 years. And Eliah did reign over the land. And in the 7th year, Jehoshaphat sent and fetched the rulers of the hundreds with captains and their guards, and brought them to him in the house of the Lord, and made a covenant with them. And he took an oath of them, and the house of the Lord he showed them with the king's son. And he commanded them, saying, Is this a thing that ye shall do? A third part of you that shall enter the Sabbath shall even the keepers of the watch of the king's house. And a third part shall be at the gate of the sur, and the third part of the gate behind the guards. So shall they keep the watch over the house, and it not be broken down. And 2 parts of all of you that go forth to the Sabbath, even they shall keep the watch of the house of the Lord about the king. Ye shall compass the king round about, every man with his weapon in his hand. And he that cometh within the rangers, let him be slain, and be the king that goeth out and cometh in." The U.S. president had an armed guard. The king of Norway has armed guards. The king of Thailand has armed guards. The king of Spain has armed guards. The king of Denmark has armed guards. Even the king of Burger has a security guard, at least. 2 Kings 11:9. The captains over the hundreds did according to the things that Jehoiada the priest commanded. And they took every man and his men that were come to the Sabbath with them, that should go out to the Sabbath, and come Jehoshaphat the priest. And the captains over hundreds did the priests give David spears and shields, and they were in the temple of the Lord. And the guards stood, every man with his weapons in his hand, round about the king, from the right corner of the temple to the left corner of the temple, along the altar of the temple. And he brought forth the king's son and put the crown upon him, and he gave him the testimony and made him king, and anointed him, and they clapped their hands and said, God save the king. And then when Eliath heard the noise of the guard of the people, she came to the people of the temple of the Lord. And when she looked, behold, the king stood on a pillar, as the manner was, and the prince of the trumpeters by the king, and all the people who in the land rejoiced and blew their trumpets. And Eliath had rent her clothes and cried, Treason, treason. She wasn't happy. She thought she got rid of all these people, but yet they hid the king's son. They hid this little boy for 6 years. They hid him, and in secret they basically put him up on the stage, and they made him king, and they told all the people, behold, here's your king. She felt kind of blindsided because she thought she took them all out. But Jehoiada the priest commanded the captains of the hundreds and the officers of the host, and said to them, Have ye forth with the rangers, and had it followed her, kill her with the sword. For the priest shall say, let her not be slain in the house of the Lord. And they laid their hands on her, and she went their way, and the way which the horses came to the king's house, if there was to be slain. And Jehoiada made a covenant between the Lord and the king of the people, for they should be the Lord's people, between the king and also the people. And all the people of the land went to the house of Baal, and broke it down, his altar and his image, broke the pieces throughout, and slew Banan, the priest of Baal, before the altars, and the priests appointed officers over the house of the Lord. So they brought this king in, who was, David's grandson or great-great-great-grandson, and they said, we need to get rid of the Baal worshippers. We need to get rid of all the Baal temples. We don't want this in Israel anymore. And he took the rulers over hundreds and the captains of the guard and all the people of the land, and they brought down the king from the house of the Lord, and came away by the gate, and the guard of the king's house, and he sat at the throne of the kings. And all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was quiet, and they slew Elisha with the sword beside the king's house. 7 years old was Joash when he began to reign. Proverbs 9 says, when the righteous are authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. Proverbs 28:2, when the transgressors of land may are the princes thereof, but the man of understanding and knowledge, the state thereof shall be prolonged. Well, guys, that's the video. I appreciate you guys watching. I'm having some sickness today and trouble seeing, so I'm glad you guys are able to get through this. Anyways, I'm going to put a couple of links on the screen here. The bottom right is going to be the Second Kings Bible Study. Top left is going to be the First Kings Bible Study, and then the bottom left is going to be a video of the YouTube things you're going to like. I appreciate you guys watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Make sure you like the video. If you have a friend that might like it, also share it with them. And I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day.